Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to Royal Canadian Legion Branch 60. We're so glad that you could join us here today to celebrate the life of a beloved husband, father, uncle, volunteer, and friend. Along with welcoming those of you who are here in attendance in the flesh, I want to welcome those who have joined us online via the magic of Zoom. As some of you may well know, Bill didn't want a funeral service, he wanted a party. So hopefully we can accommodate his wish and say our final goodbyes in style. Nothing, of course, like the old Air Force days, which I've heard some stories already about how the Air Force ran years ago. Anyways, my name is Terry Scott. I'm a vice president here at Royal Canadian Legion Branch 60, and I've been a good friend of Bill's for a good number of years. I met Bill through our joint affiliation with the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association based in Tillsonburg. And it's nice to see we've got a good number of CHA members here today, along with members from Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. A little bit more about those two bodies in a few moments. First, a little housekeeping, if I may. I want to give you an idea of how the afternoon's going to progress today. Everybody can hear me okay? First of all, back there? Good. Not that I really need the PA system, but we're going to enjoy some refreshments as we hear a little bit about Bill's life and hear from the man himself, as a matter of fact, through the magic of video. We'll be treated to a special poem read by Bill and Lynn's dear friend Jane with a Y Smith. We'll hear some tributes from representatives from the Harvard Association as well as CWH, Canadian Warplane Heritage. And at 2:30 sharp, ladies and gentlemen, so we have to watch our timing so we're all out in the parking lot in time, we'll be treated to a memorial flypast by CHA and CWH. And following the flypast, we'll come back into the lounge to enjoy some food and treats, and thanks to the Ladies Auxiliary here at Branch 60, maybe another beverage, and maybe hear some more tributes to Bill, and watch a short video clip of his final flight in a Harvard 5 years ago. William Robert Thomas Long, or Bill as we all knew him, was born on June the 4th, 1936. He left us on February the 2nd of this year, just over 5 months ago. As an 18-year-old from Winnipeg, he joined the Royal Canadian Air Force and soon found himself in Claresholm, Alberta. And at least one of his colleagues from Claresholm is with us today, Kip. That's where he first flew Harvard 242 WPK, which he would eventually reunite with at CHA and fly many times over the years. At Claresholm, he also flew CHA's 321 or UFZ, better known as Bessie. But WPK was his favorite, and he flew it a final time in August of 2017, 63 years, almost to the day that he first flew in that very same aircraft. Bill had a remarkable 60-plus year career as a pilot, starting with the RCAF, then as a commercial pilot with Ward Air, or as he used to say, I finally saw the Ward, Air Vietnam, and finally sharing his flight knowledge as an instructor with Air Canada. Even before he retired, he was busy flying with CWH and CHA. During his time in the RCAF, he met Mary, who was an administrator and personnel officer in the forces and then in the Federal Civil Service. Bill and Mary were married for 53 years. They had 2 sons, Jeff and Ian. Sadly, Jeff passed away in 2011, and we lost the lovely Mary, the pride of Newfoundland and Labrador, in 2014. But Bill did find love again in the form of a neighbor, Lynn Skinner. They had this marvelous wedding planned for the summer of 2020 aboard the sailboat Empire Sandy, but alas, COVID threw a bit of a wrench into that, and however, they did tie the knot in a small ceremony in October of 2020. Bill and Lynn had so many plans and so many things they wanted to do and see. Their time may have been short, but their love was genuine and it was deep. And Lynn, we're so sorry that Bill was taken from you and from all of us too soon. He may have been 85, but he was a man in his early 20s in so many ways. Along with flying, which you're going to hear a lot about today, and there's nothing wrong with that, Bill loved driving. He had a 50th anniversary edition Ford Thunderbird and was active in the Southern Ontario Thunderbird Club and the Thunderbird Nest Group. He also volunteered at Wellington Square United Church here in Burlington on Fridays, helping prepare meals for the homeless. That's why I could never get him to join us for fish and chips here at the Legion on Fridays. And it was a good reason, let's face it. He was also an active member in RAPCAN, the Retired Airline Pilots of Canada, and we have some RAPCAN representatives here today. I don't know if there are any members of the Thunderbird Club with us today, as they have a car show down in Lambeth near London, but I can tell you that Bill's passing hit them hard. One of the many tributes on the Thunderbird Nest website reads, "Bill Long was the salt of the earth. You would have to look long and hard to find a more pleasant human being on this planet. He lived an amazing life, and we always loved hearing of it. We were lucky to have traveled with him several times. The last time, I believe, was our waltz across Texas in 2017. Being from Canada, he was a long way from home on South Padre Island and in Big Bend National Park. COVID may not have taken him from us, but I sure feel it likely kept us from ever seeing him again, and our travel being curtailed in the last 2 years. We know that Bill had an illustrious career in the RCAF from 1954 until he went to the airlines in 1978. In 1955, he graduated from flight training school in Claresholm, Alberta. On the 1st of April, he said that should have told him something. During his time in the forces, he flew pretty much everything. Chipmunks, Harvards, Thunderbirds or T-33s, Beech 18s, Dakotas, single-engine Otters, Lancasters used for search and rescue, Convair 540s, Yukons, the Canadair C5, and even some time on helicopters. In 1964, he was transferred to Uplands in Ottawa as the station flight safety officer. One of the aircraft that they had at the time was the Comet. He says he spent some time running up and down the flight line to fly as many planes as he could. In his words, it was great sport. In 1967, 67 came along, and that was Canada's centennial, and there was a centennial show in Ottawa. They hauled out a lot of aircraft from the Canadian Aviation Museum. Bill got to fly the Newport 17, a biplane from the First World War. As he was doing a low pass, an engine mount failed, and the rotary engine wanted to leave the aircraft. As he would call it, he pranged it in nose first, his seatbelt broke, and he went head first into the machine gun. He stumbled out of the wreck and wound up in the lap of an ex-flight nurse. He made the CBC National News that night. I wish I could have got that video. I did search for it. 14 to 16 stitches later, they told him to take some time off. So Mary had an aunt in Haliburton, and they thought they'd go visit her. As they were driving up there on Highway 17, Bill went to turn off, and a guy ran into the back of their car. He got another 4 stitches. In 1968, it was off to Colorado Springs at NORAD, where he and his colleagues enjoyed a lot of things, including duty-free cars and booze. A 40-pounder of rye went for $1.25, and gin was 90 cents. They had a Cosmopolitan Canadair CC-109, which they flew to Alaska, Germany, and all through the Caribbean. It was known as Smoky 2. Well, they had some great power when it came to negotiating with the Americans, so they decided to do some upgrades to Smoky 2, which would soon be transporting the royal family around. And I'll let Bill pick up the story from there. Just give me a second.
The interesting story, everybody smoked in those days. So it had a white headliner, which was getting pretty grubby looking with the nicotine stains and everything on it. So we asked Air Materiel Command and 412 Squadron if they'd replace it. And they said, no, it cost way too much. They couldn't afford that. So we said, okay. My flight engineer also looked after the maintenance on the airplane. He started looking at it one day and he thought, wonder if I could paint that. So he went out and bought a spray can, painted it white, and it just gleamed. It was just gorgeous. He really impressed the 3-star, the air marshal running it. And we were all pleased as punch. I get into a conversation with our boss, was the general's aide actually. He was the CO of the support unit. Discovered he had a fund that was unlimited, but he couldn't spend more than $35 at a time. Well, I can't remember if it was Canadian or American, but we needed receipts. So we thought about this for a minute and created a monster. By the time the dust settled, we used to, as I said, we could get just about anything we wanted from the Americans. We had the airplane with a baby blue flight deck on it because it was much easier on the eyes than the black. We had leopard skin pilot seats. Paneling in the galley, wood paneling, and all throughout the airplane. The seats, we all had covers on them, headrest type things, all in different colors, all embroidered Smoky 02. And I'd got the crew to all interchange, so my maintenance guys could also do the steward's jobs, because he was all by himself and going pretty steady, so they could interchange jobs. They all had blazers to match the covers of the seats, all embroidered Smoky 02. and we had crystal glasses, once again, engraved Smoky 02. The boss was pretty impressed. And we used to head up to Ottawa, and he'd have all sorts of other guys, generals and things, flying in the airplanes. Air Materiel Command weren't too happy, and neither was 412 Squadron. but the 3 stars stood up for us, so we got away with it. At the end of the tour, I carried the can. I ended up buried in the deepest, darkest bowels of NDHQ for 3 years. Anyway, the airplane looked so great. By the time we finished it, all at $35 a pop with receipts. Oh, we had a new rug too. I forgot to mention that. The Air Materiel Command had quoted us $12,000 to replace his headliner. We did the whole thing for just over $6,000 total. So they weren't very impressed with that either. But the airplane looked so neat. 1971 was the British Columbia Centennial. And unbeknownst to the crew, the general was pushing us to fly the Queen around. So we eventually got to do it. We had her through the mountains. We were pretty mountain experienced by based in Colorado Springs. And so we got to fly the royal family for a week. The interesting part in that one, we did the proving flights on it, and the timing was just great, the normal type winds. Came time to carry the royal family. The winds were out of the east instead of the west. So it took a lot of scrambling to get around. But we had them through a great variety of places in the mountains, Kelowna, oh God, I can't even remember them all now. But the big problem we had was at that time there was a bunch of, or not even a bunch, just a very few small number of terrorists going around blowing up power lines in BC. So at the end of every night, we would have to take the airplane back to Vancouver to keep it under guard. It was also fully catered every day with food and booze, which never ever got touched because they were always so busy and they were bushed. God, they have a hell of a life. You know, by the time they got on the airplane to go home, they were just sort of gray from fatigue, and they'd sit back and maybe have a cup of tea, and that was it. So we would have to replace the catering every night. We found the easiest way to do that was have cocktail parties for the Vancouver police. we never got a speeding ticket or a parking ticket all week. We probably could have got away with a bank job, but we didn't do it. This was sort of the fun and games. The Air Force has got no sense of humor anymore. If we tried that nowadays, you'd probably be in prison and cashiered and done everything else. But it sure was fun while it went on.
So after the NORAD experience, it was off to Trenton and 437 Squadron flying 707s around the world. In 1978, Bill went to French language training in Hull. His family was in Ottawa at the time. When he finished that, the posting was going to be the Air Force portion of the bilingual air traffic control unit with the Ministry of Transportation. That's when he went to Ward Air. He started on 707s at Ward Air, moved on to DC-10s, and then the 747. After Ward Air was on to Air Vietnam and ultimately Air Canada, where he was instructing on flight simulators right up until he was about 80 years old, I believe, Lynn. Bill did it all with grace and style and a love of aviation. So enough from me. I'd now like to introduce a dear friend of Bill and Lynn's. That's Jane Smith, Jane with a Y, to read something very special.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Just get a little closer there, yeah.
Okay. To Bill, husband, father, friend, who is no longer with us? Sorry, my ears, yeah, right, Jane. My eyes are tearing up. In tears we saw you thinking and watched you pass away. Our hearts were almost broken. We wanted you to stay. But when we saw you sleeping, so peaceful, free from pain, how could we wish you back with us to suffer that again? It broke our hearts to lose you, but you did not go alone, for part of us went with you the day God took you home. If roses grow in heaven, Lord, please pick a bunch for us, place them in Bill's arms, and tell them they're from Lynn and us. Tell him we all love him and miss him, and when he turns to smile, place a kiss upon his cheek and hold him for a while. Because remembering him is easy, we do it every day, but there's an ache within our hearts that will never go away. Don't think of him as gone away. Bill's journey has just begun. Life holds so many facets. This earth is only one. Just think of him as resting from the sorrow and the tears, in a place of warmth and comfort where there are no days and years. Think how he must be wishing that we could know today, now nothing but our sadness can really pass away. And think of him as living in the hearts of those he touched, for nothing loved is ever lost, and he is loved so very much. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Jane. Now I'd like to introduce one of the aviation buddies of Bill's. Pat Hanna is the past president of the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. Knew Bill very well, just as I did. And Pat, I'd like you to come up and say a few words if you'd like.
Well, thank you very much, Terry. Mark Plouffe told me to keep it short, so I'll do my best. Bill, he approached you with a warm handshake and a friendly smile, and he always had a twinkle in his eye. He had a quirky sense of humor. Many times I got emails, slightly off-color jokes. A lot of them I couldn't share with my wife, but anyway, that was Bill. Bill was a man of loyalty and integrity. As a pilot, he was uncompromising in matters of safety and doing it right. As an instructor, he was patient and very encouraging to pilots that he was flying with. As a formation coach, he demanded a high standard of excellence, but he mentored the pilots and helped them achieve that standard. He loved to see progress in a pilot's journey. He was always fair in his assessments of their flying abilities. Personally, he was a very supportive and encouraging and helpful person to me, often with a little email of a suggestion or other advice. He was a very generous person with CHA, a very kind individual. He was always a pleasure to talk to. And we always, at CHA, we remember very especially his last flight. What a special occasion that was to see him go. And when he was all done, he said, "That was fun." That was Bill. He took his final flight, and what a happy moment it was for us. Bill, blue skies and tailwinds. We love you, and we sure miss you. Thank you.
We'll get another aviation colleague up here. I'd like to introduce Leon Evans, who is a pilot with the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. And before he gets up here, while he's making his way up here, I'd like to let you know that Leon's a bit of a movie star. He was part of the Lancaster crew that went to the UK in 2014, and which they documented in a marvelous movie called The Reunion of Giants, if you ever get a chance to see it, about the CWH Lancaster going overseas and all the fun and tribulations and well, a lot of fun they had. Leon?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Well, I met Bill Long 23 years ago at Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. So we're talking 1999. I was in the back seat of a Harvard getting trained with Bill. Always a memorable moment. Bill was a very loyal member of CHA, and I was a member for a few years, still a life member. But Bill did come to work with us at Canadian Warplane, and I had the pleasure again of flying with him on Harvards and Stearmans, doing annual checks on each other, of course. And Bill would always manage to fit in a few of his little unusual attitudes to make the day. Bill left us before the havoc of COVID settled in. And you can only imagine the shock and dismay that we experienced when we heard of his sudden and unexpected passing. Bill Long will be missed by all the pilots and crew chiefs and ramp people and passengers that ever had the pleasure of flying with him. He had a great sense of humor. Bill and I would often run into each other at the Air Canada Sim Building. We'd always be doing the morning flight simulator sessions or the afternoon sessions. But what I noticed about Bill, he'd come out with his students. They were always happy and smiling. They were having a wonderful time while they learned, and that was a privilege for anybody. One morning I was doing a simulator session. It was an early morning session, and it was just cleaning up the mess from the night before. Somebody had to do a 10 till 2 or a 2 till 4 session, so removing all the junk from the simulator that shouldn't have been in there, newspapers with half-completed password puzzles and pop cans and candy wrappers and everything else. But underneath one of the seats was a sheet of paper that I suspected might have been a document. And I pulled it out, and it was a poem, and some of you may have heard this poem, but I'm going to repeat it because I believe that I was meant to pass this along, and I have to many friends. It sounds like this. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there, I do not sleep. I'm in the memories of the time we shared. I'm in the hearts of those who cared. I'm in your morning walk. I laugh. I'm there when you laugh and talk. My space is free, it's wide, it's vast. My time is gone, your time is now. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. I don't want to start that again, but it goes on. I buggered it up a little bit here. It says, my time's in the past, yours time is now. It was shared with friends who made your joy, life on earth a joy amid the strife. This chapter's over, but there's more to do and many blank pages to be filled by you. Do not stand at my grave and cry, I am not there, I did not die. And I think that's very appropriate. But there's another one. I found this, it's called The Instructor's Lament, and it applies to Bill if anything does. An instructor knocked on the pearly gate. His face was scared and cold. He stood before the wall of fate for admission to the fold. What have you done, St. Peter asked, to gain admission here? A Harvard instructor, sir, he said, for many and many a year. The pearly gate swung open wide, St. Peter touched the bell. Come in and choose a harp, Bill. You've had your share of hell.
Thanks very much, Leon. We're kind of running ahead of schedule here, folks, because I was going to hopefully have some things wrapped up here by 2:20, because at 2:30 is when we're going to have the flypast by the two Harvards and the PBY Cancel from the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum, which we're very honored to have. And so we've got some time here. It's 2:12. I was hoping about 2:20 to kind of herd you cats out to the parking lot. So I'll ask if there's anybody in the crowd who would like to say a few words about Bill. If anybody wants to come up, you're more than welcome. If not, we can just kind of carry on, enjoy our beverages, and then in a few minutes I'll ask you to make your way out to the parking lot. And if you've got cameras, by all means, it'll be a beautiful day for photographing three Harvards and two Harvards and the Canso flying over. They're going to be doing, I believe, 3 passes. I'll have to double check that with Shane Clayton. Shane probably knows. No, he doesn't? No, whatever. 2 and 2. 2 and 2, so I guess that's 4. If my math is correct. Anyways. So again, anyone, if you'd like to come up, you're more than welcome. Share a story or whatever with regards to Bill. I'll leave the mic open, and then in a few minutes I'll ask you to move out to the parking lot.
Hi, my name is Lisa. There was some mention of Bill and Wellington Square United Church, so I just want to acknowledge for a number of years on Fridays, sorry about your luck, we were fortunate to have Bill with us. So for a number of years, we've been doing a community meal, and Bill was always there on Friday in the kitchen, scrubbing dishes, putting dishes away, and doing the cleanup, which for some would be the most not fun part, but he made it fun. There's a few people here that have been part of that endeavor, and we're so thankful. He brought his stories, he brought his excitement, his enthusiasm, and we're so thankful that he was a part of that. And then when COVID hit, of course he still wanted to help, so he became one of our emergency delivery drivers. So for a long period of time, as soon as COVID hit, when people didn't have food access, he was there delivering food all over Burlington. So we're so thankful for having Bill with us right up until that time, and for his generous, generous heart. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Much appreciate your kudos to Bill, and we share your thoughts entirely. So again, I'll just leave the microphone open here, and I'm watching the clock, you know, because we don't want to be late. We don't want to miss anything. It's 2:15, so in about 5 minutes, I'll ask you to kind of move out to the parking lot, and we're not done by any means. When you come back, we'll enjoy some food, and you've heard reference to Bill's last flight in the Harvard. I produced a little video about that, and it ran about 15 minutes, but you're not going to get the whole 15 minutes. You'll see a little abbreviated version of that. Sorry, did you want to come up, my friend? Yeah.
Just for a moment, I won't bore you very long.
By all means, come on up.
Hi, folks. Just to repeat a little bit of history, I've known Bill for a while, and I'm one of those ex-pilot guys, too. So we met up in 437 in Trenton in '73. And then he came to Ward Air. I was at Ward Air on the DC-10s also. But also seeing Bill at the flying clubs and that, flying my Harvard again, I looked it up, and sure enough, the 30th of November in 1962, Ronnie flew 242. And so there you go. That's a little bit of history. And I haven't seen Bill in a little while, but we're sure going to miss him, and we'll keep his memories alive. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron. And again, 242, you're going to see that fly over here in just a few minutes, along with another Harvard and the PBY Canso. Folks, while we continue to enjoy the food and the desserts, I want to thank the two flypast crews that offered a beautiful number of flypasts today. The Harvard pilots were Scott McMaster and Tony Donnelly, and the PBY Canso pilots were Bill Craig, who was trained on Harvards by Bill, and John McClenahan, and of course the support crews who helped get the planes in the air today. Thank you so much to CHA and CWH for this very fitting tribute to Bill. And I know there was, yes, very much so. And I know there was a question about the last fly past, where the two planes went by and the one peeled off with smoke on. That's called the missing man formation, and basically that's a tribute to the missing member of the flight crew as the plane peels off with smoke on. And the Harvard boys and the PBY Canso pilots did an amazing job today. And thank you both to Cha and CWH. Folks, I know you did hear mention in the presentation about Bill flying the royal family around. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see the pictures here, which is on the easel of Bill with the royal family. It's not everybody who has a picture with the Queen, but that's very dear and beloved picture that we have there with the royal family. And also there was mention earlier about Bill's final flight in the Harvard WPK 242, which you saw fly over today. In 2017, which was 5 years ago, Bill had his final flight in WPK, and with some assistance from Shane Clayton and myself, we were able to video that and put a little something together. Now, I took some liberties with this video, I'll have you know. I put some dramatic music in there, just to kind of spice it up a little bit. And so I'd like to show you that. It runs about 5 minutes. And because I know that some of you are probably on a tight time frame here, leaving shortly, but I do want to run that video of Bill's final flight. 63 years after he first flew that aircraft out in Claresholm, he flew it at Tillsonburg in 2017.
Roger that. I'm just going to put you on the left reserve here, just so we're on the fullest tank.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's right. We switched earlier now. Yeah.
No worries. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Here we go.
And away you go.
Okay, mixers rich, temperatures and pressures, 40 on the oil. And around we go.
Burn traffic. Harvard Whiskey Papa Kilo is joining the left downwind, runway 3.
Okay, and the undercarriage, gas is okay, brakes are okay. Gear down, fingers, lights and pins.
Shabby, man.
Time to go buy a lottery ticket.
Okay. We just got to not blow everything over is all here.
Yeah.
You got the smoke there, Bill. Let her go the smoke.
That's my final. There we are. That was the final. A nice end. I forgot about the bloody flat. I had to put the circuit breaker in.
No, we always keep them live. That's okay.
Okay.
I think that was a fitting end.
Yeah. I did one picture like that, like I had in the beginning. Everybody happy?
Yeah, people are gonna talk.
Lord,
How was that?
good, fun.
Bring back memories?
Oh yeah. I went in before I was 18. I was 17 and a bit. Started flying just after I turned 18. Started out, we were training pilots. I ended up back as a highly experienced 19-year-old instructor.
What?
And
You were 19?
yep,
What did you like about the Harvards?
it was just a fun airplane to fly. I wasn't happy about going back instructing. We all wanted to go on Sabres and over to the Air Division in Europe. But,
Oh, you wanted to go to
well,
Europe?
we all did. We all wanted to be Sabre pilots. But actually, the Harvard was pretty good. It taught me a lot about flying airplanes.
So the pilot that he flew with in that last flight, Scott McMaster, was the one who was flying 242 today. Folks, I'd now like to call on Lynn to say a couple of words. Lynn, if you're willing to come up. She caught her mid-sandwich. That's okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, just a little closer, yeah. Just get in
All right.
there.
I just wanted to thank everyone for coming today. It means a lot. Your love and support has been amazing over these last 5 months. And I just couldn't have done it without you. So I'm glad that you came. I'm glad we had a party. Bill wanted a party. He didn't want us to be sad. And I think we've done that. So thank you all.
I'd like to leave the official part of the presentation here with a poem. We've heard a couple of poems that Jane and Leon did, but I think it's appropriate that we do the poem called High Flight. And of course, anybody in aviation circles is familiar with that poem. This poem was written by Pilot Officer John Gillespie McGee Jr., who was 18 years old and studying in the United States when the Second World War began. Trained in Canada through the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan, he was later sent to England. And after being assigned to a high-altitude training flight in a Spitfire, he wrote this poem to his mother. He died during a training flight in 1941. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter-silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of, wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence. Hovering there, I've chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air. Up, up the long, delirious, burning blue, I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark or even eagle flew. And while with silent lifting mind I've trod the high, unsurpassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today. It means a lot to the family. It means a lot to all of us, those of us involved with the Harvard Association and CWH and the church and so forth. Bill wanted a party, so I think we have done him justice. Thank you very much.